To start off, our main character Han-ju is currently rolling a die in his system in order to change his connate providence. Unfortunately, he gets the connate providence destined loner. He then starts cursing since he doesn't want to be a loner. It's been 11 years since he got the system, and all he got is bad providence. In his past life, he was diagnosed with late-stage cancer at the age of 21. He didn't want to endure painful treatments, that's why he decided to stay home and download a sketchy immortal cultivation game. Then, while playing, he suddenly passes away, and after opening his eyes, he's already in a different world. Moreover, he's already a member of the Jade Pure sect, but his parents were slaves in the sect. They take care of the herb garden under Elder Iron. But the spiritual herbs are poisonous for mortals. That's why when Han-ju was 6, his parents fled. He then takes over his parents' duties, and just like that, he turns 11. The moment he reincarnated, he received a powerful system that allows him to re-roll his spirit root and connate providence once a day. He refuses to believe that he won't be able to roll a big one someday because he needs a good spirit root and providence before he begins cultivating. Many days later, Han-ju stretches his body and rolls the dice in his system. The moment he sees a 1 in a million garbage spirit root, he spurts blood from his nose. After crying, he forces himself to be optimistic and rolls his connate providence. Seeing the results, he's so surprised since he got 4 top-class connate providence. After happily rolling on the grass, he smiles heartily and states that he feels so good to finally have some good luck. Now, he just plans to roll a good spirit root even at 40. As he looks down at the other slaves, he states that as a person who lives 2 lives, he doesn't want to be the same as those slaves. He then swears that he will carve his name in history. Just then, 2 cultivators visit the herb garden, and the slaves are ordered to greet them properly. Hearing the admiration of other slaves for the 2 cultivators, Han-ju scoffs and says that he'll be stronger than them. Meanwhile, the male cultivator says that they'll be cultivating there to watch the herb, and no one should disturb them. Then someone asks if something happened to Elder Iron. The female cultivator Xing Hongshuan answers that a fiendish cultivator appeared near the Jade Pure sect's territory. That's why Elder Iron is on leave for official business. Hearing this, Han-ju let out a sigh of relief. He says that at least before he gets a top-class spirit root, he still needs Elder Iron's protection. The cultivation is never a peaceful place. He just hopes that his luck is good enough to quickly roll a top-class spirit root. The next day, Han-ju does his usual routine, which is rolling for good spirit roots. But all he gets is trash again, as he swears curses. Consequently, the day after that he rolls again, however, it's still a garbage spirit root. One excruciating year later, he puts his luck into whatever God's hands. Unfortunately, it's still a trash spirit root. 2 years later, Han-ju depressingly sits on the floor and complains that in these 2 years, he didn't even get 1 high-grade spirit root. He starts questioning himself when he will be able to start cultivating if his bad luck goes on. He then contemplates if he should use a mid-grade spirit root to cultivate first. But he immediately disagrees. He says that it's too much of a waste. Then he continues by saying that since he was given a second chance in life, he will live the best and longest life possible. Just then, someone orders by shouting for everyone to come out and greet the Lord. Outside, the slaves, including Han-ju, greet the ever-stern Elder Iron. Elder Iron then praises and thanks them for having done a great job while he's away. Hearing this from Elder Iron, everyone feels honored except Han-ju, who mocks them in a low voice. Just then, Elder Iron calls out 4 young people, including our hero, Han-ju. At night, the other slaves are talking to themselves about what Elder Iron will do by especially asking them. Meanwhile, Elder Iron orders the 4 to show in their hands, since he will be looking at their grade of spiritual roots. That surprised them, but they still obeyed the orders. On the other hand, Han-ju ponders why Elder Iron is doing it now, because he's the one who forbids cultivating in the first place. Just then, he notices blood stains on Elder Iron's clothes and wonders if he's injured. Then, it's Han-ju's turn. He nervously shows his hand to Iron Elder. After examining him, Elder Iron concludes he doesn't have a spiritual root. However, Elder Iron senses a spirit root inside Zhangji's body, and says that he will accept him as a disciple. Zhangji rejoices while other slaves are amazed. 3 years later, Han-ju happily rolls on the ground after getting a top-grade spirit root. He decides to start cultivating, but then he remembers Elder Iron is still monitoring them. Also, Zhangji never returned after being accepted as a disciple, so Han-ju can only imagine what Iron Elder will do to him if he finds out. Just then, A notification came from the system, and it says that it can help him create a small secluded world to cultivate. This secluded world can help him block the prying eyes of others. Knowing this, Han-ju declares that he will officially step on the road of cultivation. After activating the secluded world, the system lets him choose his main path of cultivation. Han-ju then wonders what he will choose from the numerous paths he can choose from. Then he thinks about the 6 paths of reincarnation technique, and it should have a way to cultivate 6 elements at once. But then he concludes that the best choice is the path of a sword cultivator. After choosing, energy gathers around him and enters his body, beginning his path of cultivation. He then looks at his system window and notices that there are a few more options, like the relationship tab. He clicks on it and sees the emotion of Elder Iron towards him. Seeing that the emotion is hate, he swears curses at him. After venting his feelings, he realizes that Elder Iron's hatred towards him must be because of his runaway parents. He then decides to just cultivate in peace, so he doesn't waste time and starts his cultivation. He decides to leave the herb garden after reaching the 9th stage of the key refinement realm. While cultivating, he can sense specks of light and wonders if it's spiritual Kai. He then decides to focus on the 4 elements that he senses, except the fire and lightning spiritual Kai. After his first round of cultivation, the system lets him choose 1 reward from the 2 rewards. He sees the second option as being a low-key cultivator, where he can hide everything about him from other cultivators. Without further dilemma, he chose the second option. 2 years later in the herb garden, using the 4 spiritual key that he absorbed, he can grow healthy spirit herbs. As he looks at the spirit herbs, he says that he already reached the 7th stage of key refinement. Ever since he started cultivating, his charm attribute has begun to show its effects. Every girl in the garden wants to marry him. Just then, Sing Hongshuan blocks his way and orders him to come with her. While walking in the forest, Han-ju looks at the system and sees that she has 2 stars of positive favorability towards him. He feels that it's weird since he never interacted with her. He then thinks that maybe it's because of his charm attribute. Then, Sing Hongshuan asks him if he wants to be a slave there for the rest of his life. He tells her that he doesn't want to be a slave for life. Then, she cuts him off saying that if he helps her do something, she will help him cultivate. Han-ju asks what it is, and she answers that he needs to steal Elder Iron's alchemy recipe. She continues that she will bring him along to the fiendish cult. Also, if his aptitude is not bad, she wouldn't mind being a Tao companion to him. Hearing this, Han-ju is stupefied as he realizes that she is from the fiendish cult. As he sweats, Han-ju thinks hard. If he offended the Jade Pure sect, he'd be chased by them to the end of the world. Also, if he refuses her, she will definitely kill him. He then surveys his surroundings and remembers that Elder Iron is not in the herb garden, so it's no use if he shouts his lungs out. Sing Hongshuan walks past him and says that there's still time for him to slowly consider her offer. As of now, their cultivation is the same, but he can't resort to brute force since he never learned any magic, and he has no weapon. Realizing this, he clenches his fist. Then, he hides his thoughts and warmly turns to her to say that he doesn't know the location of the pill recipe. He's about to add that he doesn't do any cultivation when Sing Hongshuan captures his head and presses him to the ground. She then says that she bets Elder Iron won't be coming back in the coming few years. As for the guard, she says that she will lead them away. Just then, she shows him a black pill and says that it's to help him unlock his spirit root. Han-ju knows it's poison, and she shoves the pill into his mouth. Back in his courtyard, Han-ju orders the system to expel the pill from his body. He then vomits the poison pill and swears that he will never let her get away. Then he ponders if he should listen to her or not. He remembers that people from the fiendish cult will never stop until they accomplish their goal. Meanwhile, a mission from the system came about his situation. It gives him 2 options and tells him the consequences of the said options. The second option is about him not allowing Sing Hongshuan to obtain the recipe, and he will get rewarded. He chose the second option and began his routine of cultivation at night. Outside of his room, Sing Hongshuan whispers to him where the alchemy recipe is and the plan on how to get it. At midnight, Han-ju sees the horrendous state of the guard that Sing Hongshuan killed. As Sing Hongshuan leads the guards away, Han-ju enters the study room and tries to find where the recipe is. As he complains that he can't where it is, Sing Hongshuan appears in the window and asks what he's babbling about. She then threatens him. Han-ju gets nervous and backs away. As he does so, he knocks a vase, and when it falls, it is revealed that inside of it is the pill recipe. They both had different reactions in unexpectedly finding the pill recipe. Hanju then looks at Sing Hongshuan and realizes that he's screwed. If she gets her hand on the recipe, she will kill him. Unexpectedly, Sing Hongshuan rushes to him, lovingly hugs him, and states that he's her lucky charm. She then excitedly picks up the recipe and says that she never expected him to behave romantically. Meanwhile, he wonders what he should do since he will lose his reward if she gets the recipe. He then notices that her breathing is unstable and muses if he should make a sneak attack. He's about to smash her head when an energy key attacks them. The attack comes from Elder Iron. He catches the recipe and questions how dare they steal it. The injured Sing Hongshuan questions how Elder Iron comes back. He answers that he has been back for a long time and that he's only waiting for them to make their moves. Elder Iron then gathers his key, attacks Sing Hongshuan, and states for her to prepare to die. As she dodges the attack and thinks that if she fights him right now, she will definitely lose. Also, the recipe is in his hands, there's only a slim chance for her to retake it, so she decides to escape for now. She then jumps to the window. Elder Iron didn't chase her, since he knows he will never catch up. Meanwhile, Hanju wakes up and says that he almost died while trying to hold Sing Hongshuan. Elder Iron then orders him to tell him what happened. After his Oscar-level acting skills, Elder Iron believes him and orders him to go back to sleep. As he runs back to his courtyard, the system rewards him with the sword technique. Unparalleled Finger Divine Sword. 2 years later, he chops off wood while using the sword technique as practice. In the past 2 years, he achieved the 9th level of Key Refining Realm for the 4 spirit roots. Only the fire and spiritual roots are left. Then he will break through to the Foundation Establishment Realm. After some time, Hanju sneaks out and says goodbye to the herb garden. At the gate of Jade Pure Sect, Hanju introduces himself as a rogue cultivator at the 9th level of Key Refining, and questions if can join the sect. Hey there guys, before we continue, if you've reached this far, I highly doubt you don't enjoy it, so don't forget to subscribe and like the video. And let's get back to it. Seeing his cultivation level, the guards are quite shocked. Just then, Yang Lu arrives and introduces himself as the Outer Sect Warden. Since many fiendish cultivators try to infiltrate the sect, he asks Hanju to show him his spiritual energy. Hanju agrees, and using his unparalleled Finger Divine Sword, he destroys a small part of a nearby mountain. Seeing this, the guards and Yang Lu widen their eyes in shock. Yang Lu thinks that it was not a sword technique, and most likely a magic spell which is too outrageous for Hanju's cultivation level. He then states that there's no problem with Hanju, and he is now an Outer Sect disciple. While walking, Hanju asks him how many disciples are there in the sect and what are the conditions to enter the inner sect. He answers that there are 2,000 disciples in the Outer Sect, and Hanju needs to reach the Foundation Establishment Realm in order to enter the inner sect. As they were talking more about the structure of the sect, Hanju suddenly asks if there were any places in the sect where he can cultivate lightning and fire spiritual Kai. Yang Lu tells him that there's none in the Outer Sect, and if Hanju has a lightning spirit root, he can appeal to the Elder Hall. Hanju then manifests his lightning spirit roots while asking for Yang Lu's little help. Yang Lu immediately agrees since it will be a great investment for him. They arrive at the Elder Hall. Yang Lu introduces Hanju to an old elder of the sect, saying that he has lightning spirit roots. Then Hanju shows his talent of being a triple spirit root, which makes him a genius level in the sect's standard. After giving Hanju the basic cultivation resources and equipment of a disciple, he proceeds to cultivate his fire spirit root to the 9th level of the refinement realm. The moment Hanju saw the attribute panel, he decided to live a long life. Half a year later, Yang Lu enters Hanju's room and notices that his aura becomes stronger. Hanju reaches the 9th level of Key Refinement for Fire Spirit Root. Inside the Elder Hall, Hanju greets the First Elder. The First Elder compliments his temperament, which is comparable to an inner sect disciple. He tells Hanju that if he wants to join the inner sect, he will need a master, and there are 18 missionary elders that can potentially become his master. If there are none of the 18 elders who want Hanju, he needs to participate in the Outer Sect competition. While riding on a flying gourd bottle, the first asks Hanju what kind of training style he wants to be under. He then says that he prefers being discreet, and he doesn't like crowds. Hearing this, the First Elder gives him a strange look, and suggests that the Jade Siren Peak might suit him. Eventually, they arrive at the inner sect, and their Hanju sees many cultivators flying on their swords. As they walk towards the Jade Siren Peak, Hanju notices that it's the lowest and barren peak in the entire sect. The first elder says that it's because the coaching elder of Serene Peak, Fairy Shishuan, likes to cultivate in seclusion. Also, she forbids his disciples to develop feelings for each other. Basically, all of the disciples are ascetic. Hanju becomes excited knowing that the Serene Peak is so suitable for him. He then thinks that for now he just needs to focus on cultivation. As for a Tao companion, it can wait until he reaches a phenomenal realm in cultivation. Inside the hall, the first elder introduces Hanju to Fairy Shishuan. She then asks Hanju if he's willing to not bother with mundane affairs and just focus on cultivation. Just then, a girl says that the peak is finally a decent junior brother. Hanju sees that her name is Chang Yuer and that she has a 2-star favorability towards him. He then turns to Shishuan and says he can enter seclusion for 100 years. This piques Shishuan's interest as she orders him to attack her since she wants to see his ability. Then Hanju uses his sword technique and sends a sword key to attack her. But it dissipates the moment the sword key reaches her. The system then tells him that Fairy Shishuan has generated good feelings towards him. Currently, it's 1 star. Shishuan questions Hanju if that's the skill he got, and he answers yes. She then praises his sword skill and tells him he stays at the peak. As the first elder bids his farewell, Hanju notices that Shishuan is unpleasantly looking at him. Chang Yuer then whispers that she's waiting for him to greet her as his master. He immediately kneels and exaggeratedly greets her like she's an empress. After the embarrassing greeting, she tells Chang Yuer to bring Hanju to register in the inner sect and help him to arrange his cave abode. While flying on the sword, Hanju nervously holds Chang Yuer's waist. Looking at Hanju's face, Chang Yuer thinks he's so handsome, and she won't let him be bullied. Finally, they arrive at Hanju's cave abode, that she bids her farewell. Then, he settles down his things and contemplates that this is the first time he felt intimidated. His master is a nascent soul cultivator, a level far beyond his imagination. The first elder tells him that the difference between the outer and inner sects is insurmountable. Even if he is a half-step golden core cultivator, he can only become the first elder of the outer sect. The cultivation levels currently known in the sect are as follows: Key Refinement, Foundation Establishment, Golden Core, and Nascent Soul. According to Hanju's knowledge, the founder of the sect is a powerhouse above the Nascent Soul realm, and he still hasn't returned for years. So Fairy Shishuan is the strongest cultivator he encountered so far. Just then, because of becoming an inner sect disciple, the system gives him 2 options. The first option is to earn a reputation but offend Shishuan. Second option is to keep a low profile and obtain a movement technique. 3 years later, Hanju is currently flying on his sword when suddenly Shishuan calls and praises him. Hanju then asks for advice on how to cultivate his lightning spirit root, but Shishuan tells him that he can't. Hanju becomes angry and asks his master for the reason why he can't. Shishuan tells him that specializing in one spiritual key is already difficult, and he will encounter stronger heavenly tribulation in the future by doing this. He then kneels and resolutely states that he believes he can succeed as he's willing to spend all his time cultivating. She secretly smiles and tells him that he can go to the lightning spirit pool. In the lightning spirit pool, Hanju feels that by cultivating close to the center, his lightning spiritual key will directly go up to the 9th level. He notices that there's only one person in the pool. Just then, he got spooked by an old spirit tree that warned him to not walk around the spirit pool. His efficiency will double by cultivating near a spirit tree, so it seems that he can cultivate to the 9th level in advance. Hearing Hanju bragging, Mo Fu Chao thinks that he won't be able to go far. 1 year later, Mo Fu Chao takes back whatever he said before. Meanwhile, Hanju finally cultivated his lightning spirit root to the 9th level and is preparing to go for the foundation establishment realm. Noticing the coming heavenly tribulation, the old spirit tree and Mo Fu Chao are shocked. The old tree states that the heavenly tribulation will become stronger because it happens in the lightning spirit pool. Just then, the tribulation arrives and Hanju easily absorbs and turns it into his energy for his foundation establishment. 2 years later, Hanju notices that his lifespan is now 200 years. Amidst the bustling market, Mo Fu Chao introduces himself to Hanju. Hearing that Hanju is part of the Serene Peak, he invites him to join his peak. At that moment, a notification comes from the system, and when Hanju sees this, it greatly surprised him. Meanwhile, Xing Hongshuan is currently hiding in the bush from the pursuers of the Nether cult. She wonders where she should go now. Everyone will chase her no matter what if they find her real identity. She believes that Hanju is the only one who will trust her since he stood up for her. Just then, a crow reports that there's red hair in the bush, prompting Xing Hongjuan to run. Back in the sect, Hanju gets a headache when the system notifies him that Xing Hongjuan is being hunted down. They didn't see each other for years. He muses why she has a favorable impression towards him. He then notices that this is a new feature from the system. It's a character activity record feature. He is about to continue focusing on his cultivation when suddenly he hears a bell. He gets out and sees Chang Yuer happily waving at him. She invites him to go to their master together. She then notices that he's already in the Foundation establishment realm. She turns from happy to depressed in an instant. She decides that she can't lose to her junior brother. While flying on their sword, Chang Yuer explains that once the bell rings, it means that their master wants to meet all her disciples. In Xishuan's cultivation place, Xishuan informs all her disciples that there are spies from the Nether cult and that they should be careful in recruiting new disciples. Meanwhile, everyone notices how handsome and refined Hanju is. The first disciple, Liu Sangxin, introduces himself, while Hanju politely greets back. Afterward, Xishuan tells them that the 3 peaks that rank last in the inter-peak competition will have to choose 10 disciples to join the fight against the Nether sect. Everyone thought that Xishuan would choose Liu Sangxin to go to the nurturing program, but to everyone's surprise, she chose Hanju instead. Hanju then stands up and says that he just wants to cultivate quietly, so she should give this opportunity to his senior brothers and sisters. Hearing this, Xishuan says that Liu Sangxin will be the one going, which Liu Sangxin cryingly says that he understands. So that's it for now. If you enjoyed this video, remember to subscribe and hit the notification bell. We have more exciting content coming soon, and you don't want to miss out.